Welcome everyone to the NEMSIS V3 call for today. It is April 10th, 2024. If there is, um, we appreciate your attendance. The meeting is being recorded as always, and it will be uploaded to the NEMSIS website and to our YouTube channel so that if you want to review anything that was discussed here or share it with a colleague, please feel free. This is a conversation. If you do want to mention something, have a comment here, please raise your hand and you'll be unmuted so that you can speak freely here. If you get a chance, oh, and I also did want to point out a small change in the agenda here. You'll notice that in bullet point 3, that the attendance on the V3 implementation call will be tallied approximately 10-15 minutes after the start of the call. If a vendor joins after that time, it's your responsibility to contact NEMSIS regarding their attendance. And so you'll see in red here, we say if you join past 9:10 Mountain Standard Time, your attendance will not be counted. So if everyone please make note of that change, I would sure appreciate it. So moving on, let's go on to our first agenda item here, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague John Britt for our stakeholder introduction.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. This is the second meeting in a row where I'm really sad because nobody has completed the form or sent me information to present. I have two people that I'm waiting for, but if you have not been introduced at one of these calls, please make my day. Fill out the form that I just sent the link to. Send me a couple pictures, and there's now a nice link at the end of the form that you can do that automatically. And you too may get to share in this spotlight for 30 seconds in front of 130 people. Other than that, that's all I have. And please fill that out. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you, John. I know that this is something you look real forward to. So, like, if we can all help him out, John is almost inconsolable at the end of the meeting
I
when
know
he
this is
doesn't
my
get to do
favorite
this.
thing. This is my
So,
favorite. Exactly.
one of my favorite things too. So we should make sure that everybody gets a chance there. So if you haven't filled that out yet, please take a moment. And we like to put faces to names and hobbies to people so that when we see you at the annual meeting, we can bond over soccer games or horror movies or something like that. So thank you, John. So moving on, let's go to the maintenance update with Jen Correa, who also has the next piece. So you can just start when you're done with the maintenance update.
Will do. Good morning, everyone. And I do encourage everyone to do those stakeholder introductions. It'd be great to get to know everyone. There's lots of folks who are on these calls every time, and we might not have met in person yet. So the maintenance update for April is the days are set for April 16th and 17th. If you experience any issues on those 2 days, it is to be expected. If there's going to be any major issues, we will contact you via email to the Google group and let you know. And outside of that window, please always let us know if you're having any issues getting onto the website or pulling up any of the dashboards or reports. Which brings us up to the compliance policy. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and bring it up on here for you. So what you're seeing is the update that was made as of April 1st, and it's in regards to maintaining your compliance. And hopefully you guys are seeing my screen. There it goes. Now it's showing green. It's in regards to maintaining your compliance and attending these V3 calls. There was lots of questions about when to attend, when to join the calls, how long you have to be on the call. And so we wanted to make sure that we put it into the policy so that it was clear for everyone and everyone was on the same page. The expectation is that you will be on in the first 10 minutes of the call and that you'll stay for the entirety of the call. And that information was updated at the bottom of page 4, top of page 5. The notice did go out. We're going to be a little bit lenient with this one. And the next one, we will definitely hold to it. So please make sure that you have logged into the meeting by 10 after the hour. And then the other thing that we want to make sure everyone was aware of is that attending in person, having someone from your software vendor is expected. There was questions about whether it was okay to have a bot take notes or anything like that. And really the whole purpose of these calls is to have this back and forth conversation between the vendors and the TAC and the states and all of the stakeholders. So it's really important that you attend in person. So we do ask that you do not use bots to take notes of the meeting. So that was put into the compliance policy. Is there any questions about that? Fantastic. And I will go ahead and pass it back to you, Chris.
Perfect. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Jen. Really appreciate it. Next on our agenda is we're going to be hearing from Monet, who's going to give us an update about the NEMSIS monthly report.
Okay, thank you so much. May I please share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, greetings everyone. Thank you so much for being on the call today. I want to let you know about the monthly activity report. We currently have a page called Public Reports, and we have a new tab called NEMSIS Monthly Reports. And so we produce a monthly report to increase the transparency and communication with our stakeholders. And we typically send this, we will continue to send this report out. We will push it out via the Google group. While if you miss the Google notification of this report, you can certainly come here to the website and also review this report. This report is also available on the NASEMSO's Basecamp, but simply this is a summary of some of the activities that the NEMSIS TAC is involved in. It's not all inclusive, but it does provide a highlight. And then this information here about the NEMSIS compliance, who has passed compliance, this information has been requested, and so it's always available on this report. We also have a spotlight of our new members on our team, and so this will change next month as we will present some additional information about the newest member of the TAC team. And then, of course, the Go Green initiative showing you which states have currently progressed to submitting the 3.5 data. So please take a look at this report. I know there's questions oftentimes about the Okta user accounts and how you reset your account and various questions related to that. And that information is here as well. So we encourage you to look at this report. And if you have any ideas for how this report can be improved, or you would like to see something that's not on this report at this time, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to include that information in this report for you. Are there any questions at this time? I see something in the chat. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you appreciating the report. All right, if you have additional questions about this report or suggestions, you can always submit a help desk ticket and just indicate that you want to make a suggestion for the monthly activity report, and we will include that information. We will consider it, and if it's approved, we will add it to the report. Thanks so much, and I will turn it back to you, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would glad you saw the kudos in there. I know that I have heard from a lot of people saying that they appreciate the monthly report there. So great work with that. Thank you so much. Next on our list here, I have it on good authority that Josh Legler has an update on interoperability. So Josh, if you'd like to take over.
I do. Thanks, Chris. I'll share my screen in a minute. I have a couple things by way of updates for interoperability efforts. First thing is I just want to let you know that we plan on building out some data transformations. These will be XSLT files that can transform data between HL7 formats and the NEMSIS format. And the first of those transformations has been published about a month ago. I'll put a link in the chat here. This one is a transformation to take a discharge summary from a hospital and get it transformed into a NEMSIS format for the e-outcomes section of a NEMSIS patient care report. So this is targeted, kind of the audience here is software developers who work for vendors. And they could use this XSLT if they can obtain a discharge summary from a hospital. They can run it through this transformation, and what they'll get out from the transformation will be kind of a partial NEMSIS XML file that would have some information about the patient, and then critically, the hospital information would be in the e-outcomes section of that file. So then they could further process that data into their EPCR systems database. So you'd have outcomes attached to the original PCR in the database. So that's the first. There will be should be more coming. Don't have timelines on those yet, but we should have timelines soon. So just want to make you aware of that resource. Then the other thing is I attended the annual meeting of the Health Information Management and Systems Society, or HIMSS, conference in March in Orlando, Florida. And a couple highlights and kind of a takeaway from that conference. There were 2 presentations among all the educational sessions that were about EMS data. Both of those sessions were put together by the Center for Health and Research Transformation at the University of Michigan. And I got to be a co-presenter in one of those sessions. So I really appreciate the work that they did to get these 2 EMS sessions into the HIMSS education agenda. While I was at HIMSS, I met with a bunch of people, met with 3 EMS software vendors, most of the national health information networks, and many others. And as I did so, kind of just collected takeaways, thoughts about what we need to do next with interoperability. And so one thing in particular that I think we'll be highlighting that I'd like to share with you as a takeaway that I had is that we need to make sure that TEFCA supports EMS interoperability. TEFCA is the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement. It's the effort that's overseen by the federal government, by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology in the Department of Health and Human Services, to create a nationwide framework for interoperable health information networks. So TEFCA will be kind of the future of health information exchange via networks. TEFCA has a concept, a key concept within it called exchange purpose. So if you're connected to a network that implements the TEFCA framework, then you can communicate with anyone across the country who is also connected to a TEFCA health information network. And you can submit a query to ask for data about a patient. And when you submit that query, you have to indicate the exchange purpose, the reason for your query. So if you're an EMS provider on a 911 call and you're trying to look up a patient and get their medical history, then your software can submit a query to the network, and the exchange purpose of that query will be treatment, because you're trying to treat a patient. Or if you are trying to send your EMS report to the hospital, or the hospital wants to get your EMS report, the exchange purpose again is treatment, because the hospital needs to continue treating your patient. And treatment queries are required to have a response in TEFCA. So if you're connected to TEFCA, you have to respond to treatment queries. There's another exchange purpose. There's many others, but one of the others is operations. And operations right now does not require a response in TEFCA. It's an optional thing. So if you are an EMS provider and your software submits a query to the network to get the hospital report from after the encounter, that's not considered a treatment exchange purpose, because you're no longer treating the patient. It's considered operations, because the EMS agency is going to use that information from the hospital to improve their own operations. Responses to those queries are optional today. So the path forward that we see that we need to work on is to ensure that there is what we would call a sub-exchange purpose within operations in TEFCA that becomes required. So that when a healthcare provider, including EMS, is asking for information about a patient after the encounter is over to improve their own operations, that those would be prioritized, those queries, and that there would be a requirement for hospitals to respond, or hospitals' data systems to respond to those queries. So that's the big takeaway, I think, from the time I spent, interviews and meetings I had at HIMSS last month, something we'll be working on. So I think that's about it for me. I just want to update you on those movements, and we'll keep working hard on interoperability. So I'll just check if anything came in the chat while I was talking. It looks like nothing did. Okay.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of additional comments. Yeah, thanks you for covering this and making it so clear. This is incredibly helpful. Maybe a couple of sentences about why, and you shared this with me, why hospitals have a hesitancy to deal with operations queries.
Yeah, that's a great thing to be aware of. So operations is a pretty broad exchange purpose, and EMS wants to do queries for operations, and that's like a tiny slice of the operations exchange purpose. The really big slice of operations is insurers and payers who want to do daily queries on all of the people they insure across all the hospitals on the network to see if there were any encounters for the patients that they insure. So when a hospital says, okay, I'll respond to operations queries, they're opening themselves up to responding to a whole bunch of queries. And a tiny slice of that is going to be EMS. So that's why we need to say, okay, let's carve out that slice that's EMS, and let's require the hospitals to respond to that without making them respond to all the other stuff that's going to be a challenge for them.
Yeah, Josh, that's really, really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. I think this is a great approach. I hope that we can get the audience. We need Eric at ONC to kind of work through this. I think that would be incredibly valuable. One other thing, Josh, I think it might be helpful to share, and I'm going to take you back to the new product that you developed, right? The kind of the HL7 exchange of kind of XSLT moving, kind of allowing to be able to comb through that patient summary that can be so extensive to actually pull out what's necessary for the e-outcome section. So this is an incredibly valuable tool, I think. Josh, you mentioned that there were going to be other tools that we might work on. Can you just perhaps just give the folks just kind of a flavor for what we're also thinking to accomplish with XSLTs in this space?
Yeah, sure can. So a discharge summary is one of the common document types that's used in HL7 clinical document architecture. And it was the first one because it was the easiest to tackle. But there's another document type in clinical document architecture that's even more common, that's the most common, and that's a continuity of care document. So a hospital could issue a discharge summary when their patient is released, but a lot of hospitals will actually issue a continuity of care document. So it's the same overall architecture, but it's just kind of set up a little bit differently than a discharge summary. So that will be a transformation from a continuity of care document to a NEMSIS e-outcome fragment. And then we'll also be looking at transformations the other direction. So getting a NEMSIS patient care report transformed to some kind of HL7 format so that a hospital system could receive that patient care report in a format that it recognizes. So we might do like a NEMSIS to continuity of care document, or a NEMSIS to transfer summary. We'll also do a NEMSIS to unstructured document. That'll be kind of a quick and easy one. So looking at both directions of the data flow here that ease those points where data has to move between NEMSIS and HL7 formats in either direction.
Thanks, Josh. Really helpful.
Great. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, but feel free to follow up with me if you have questions or things you'd like to help with, or just input in general for the direction of our interoperability efforts. Okay, back to you, Chris.
Wonderful. Thank you, Josh. And if you are not connected with Josh on LinkedIn already, highly recommend that because he posts when he's at these conferences and the interesting information he's getting and such there. So hopefully you get inundated with a bunch of connections today, Josh. Thank you so much for the information.
Sounds good.
Next, we have Randall Eimerman, who's going to give us our NASEMSO liaison update. Randall?
Hi, thanks, Chris. Three updates for everyone. First will just be on our custom element subcommittee, continuing some work on time definition series. They're kind of in the early stages, talking back and forth, just trying to sort of define the times a little bit better. The extended data definition document, continued effort on that, adding more data elements. We're hoping to have this updated version uploaded to the NEMSIS website very soon. That was going through some edits and some different processes. And then lastly, the DMC, we continue to meet regularly every month. It's a great discussion, and everyone's really looking forward to meeting in person for Pittsburgh. So those are just the three updates for us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Any questions for Randall from anyone? Awesome. Thank you so much, Randall. Appreciate it. Okay, next on our list here, we are going to go back to Monet, who is going to talk about the NEMSIS annual meeting registration.
Thank you, Chris. And I would like to share my monitor. Thank you. Okay, share my screen. All right, everyone, greetings again. And I am very pleased to say that the registration is now open for the NEMSIS annual meeting. This is first hero slide button on our NEMSIS website. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the link just to show you that we have the registration link here. Click to register. We also have posted a very high level draft agenda. We're hoping that you will use this agenda to submit your request to travel to the meeting. I want to mention that based on our discussion last month, we have heard your comments about the Connect-a-thon, and we have decided to remove that offering from the Tuesday pre-conference sessions. And the registration site will reflect the same. So there is not a offering for the Connect-a-thon this year. And thank you again for all the input and discussion around that topic. We are going to, and we have extended an invitation to a very dynamic speaker from ONC to talk about TEFCA, the very topic that Josh Legler just mentioned. So I would encourage you to be in the room. I heard this lady speak in DC in December at the ONC annual meeting at the EMS Data Summit that we held. And I tell you, fire. She is very articulate. You can understand the information very easily. So you want to be in the room for this presentation. And I will also mention that as we continue to confirm our presenters, this agenda will be updated. So just use this agenda for now to start your registration process. And if you have additional information that you want us to consider for the annual meeting, please feel free to submit that information to us, and we will take that for consideration. Also on this page on the NEMSIS website is the letter that you can also submit to your leadership regarding your enthusiasm about attending the meeting. And this has some additional information about the hotel, but this information is also duplicated on the registration site. Now, if there's additional information that you need on this page, such as transportation information or any other information, please reach out and let us know. The third document we have here is related to check processing and any refunds. So please review these documents and let us know if it's thorough, if it answers all your questions. The additional documents will be added to this page, and we look forward to seeing you there. Are there any questions? All right, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Monet. I know the massive amount of effort that always goes into this from the whole team, but especially you. Thank you for all the hard work. Really appreciate it.
You, Chris, for the beautiful graphics.
You're welcome. I was gonna say, could they? I feel like that register now button is very significant. I feel like it will feel good clicking on it to get over to the spot where you can register for this wonderful conference. Um, Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, Lauri, I believe you are going to talk to us about ideas for state and vendor joint session at the annual meeting pre-conference. Just to let everybody know in the audience that we have set it so that you can unmute yourself. Lauri requested this to be a conversation part, so that has been done. And so, Lauri, you can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And before I jump into that topic, let me just follow up on what Monet shared and let state data managers know. We will again have an opportunity for some financial assistance for states that would like to be there but may need some help financially, and be looking for an email from me with a link to apply for that and more information to follow. So be on the lookout for that. And this topic, as Chris shared, we do hope we can have a little bit of discussion. After last year's annual meeting, we sent out a post-meeting survey, and we got some feedback that both from states and vendors that said you would like some time together at the conference. There were the day before the general session, it was split up last year, and you said you'd appreciate some time together. And then we would like to hear, I think, what as we're planning what that may look like. We'd love to hear from both states and vendors what maybe the goal of that would be, what the purpose may be, what kind of layout would be best. Are you looking for one room, everyone together, or maybe smaller, divided up by vendors? So anyone who gave that feedback or feels like that would be a good idea, I'd love to hear a little more of the reasoning for that, or what you would like that to look like. And you should be able to unmute. If not, feel free to put a message in chat. We can unmute you.
Yeah, Lauri, this is Clay. Maybe to prime the pump a little bit more. Oh, sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please, Clay.
I was just going to say, we've kind of kicked around this idea after several people mentioned it in the comments related to last year's meeting. I think it's a great idea, right? We've kicked around the idea of maybe structuring this so that, yeah, we're going to have a vendor pre-conference and we'll have a state kind of EMS a leadership pre-conference, and maybe we'll spend some time in each of those separate conferences talking about what topics we'd like to cover between the two, right? Are there issues that the vendors would like to talk to the states about, kind of at a high level, right, as a group? Or are there issues that state data managers are facing that they're seeing among many of their products, and they'd like to have kind of an open discussion about that? And then us come together and discuss those things could be an approach. Or it could be kind of a meet and greet where the vendors have tables and, we actually meet separately, but then we have time that we all get together, and there's a table for each of the vendors that the data managers can walk to and from between. So just trying to get a feel for what you folks think might be the value of having kind of this joint session on that pre-day, and what that might look like.
Eric, did you have a comment as well?
No, that was an excellent summary of what I was going to say, which was, we're doing this at the request of people that participated in the past. And I understand that maybe people reluctant to put their stuff in the chat. That's fine. Shoot an email to Clay, Lauri, and say, hey, I'd like to have a room for some time, or I like to have some time with Clay, or I like to have some time with Josh or myself or whoever. We're trying to just ask to get a little bit ahead on that so we understand whose time's committed to where. That's all.
Hi, this is Karen. Can I chat real quick about that?
Yeah, thanks, Karen.
Yeah. So one of the mornings during breakfast, Lance Iverson and I sat at a table where two of the vendors who have clients that operate in South Dakota were there. And what was really nice about that was we were able to have, you know, kind of a group conversation and a little bit of individual conversation. So my thought is that whether it's everybody needs their own room, or whether it's a room that has many round tables so that people can meet together. My vision, especially with some of the states, I mean, granted, this isn't until October, so it may not be as helpful. But for a lot of people who are still, you know, transitioning their agencies and working with vendors and fine-tuning schematron rules / validation rules in their systems, that having that one-on-one time to talk about, you know, issues and potential changes, that there might be some value there. Thank you.
That's great. Great feedback. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, Karen, that's a good thought, right? And Peter brought up that same thought just on the call 2 weeks ago, right? He mentioned that he had vendors that were functioning in the state of New York that he'd never met in person, right? There's lots of the vendors really don't have members of their team actually attending other conferences and other things. So, so Peter also mentioned, you know, that last year he was able to have a face-to-face conversation with a couple of vendors that were working in New York that he'd never met before, right? So that can be valuable time.
And are there any vendors on the call that have a maybe perspective of what you would like to see come out of that time?
Hey, Lauri, this is Samantha with ESO. I remember a couple of conferences ago, I think it was the one right before COVID, where the vendors went to one side of the room, the state data managers to another. We all worked together on a certain problem and then came together to discuss it at the end. And I thought that was an incredibly valuable time. And I would like to see something like that again for sure, if we're looking at having this kind of meeting. And as for the time to talk to state data manager, love it. I mean, we always manage to have conversations and talk with people in the room, but to have some dedicated time, I think would be ideal.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Anyone else have ideas or feedback or what you might envision that looking like?
Hi, this is Dipti from state of Georgia. I think having a joint conversation with vendors and state data managers will be very helpful, not just to discuss issues, but also best practices that other states are doing with their specific vendors, so that we may also implement the same practices that they have. That would be ideal for the vendor and also the state. So I would definitely be interested in sharing ideas with vendors and other state data managers as well, and kind of learn more from them. So I think that would be very helpful.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, that would be good as kind of a group combined discussion.
Hey, Lauri, another suggestion I may have is in that pre-conference is maybe incorporating the third quarter vendor meeting into that on-site discussion as well. I know we held that quarterly, but that might be a good, hey, in-person one.
Yeah, great idea. That's a good suggestion.
I second that. That would be awesome, Doug.
I have an awkward question, and I apologize about this in advance, is if this is going to be a vendor state pre-conference, is NEMSIS going to screen the people registering for these and making sure they fall into one of these buckets? You know, if for us to probably speak openly, if one of our clients were in the room, we may not be able to be as transparent as we would want. I just don't know what the thoughts on that is if it's a vendor pre-conference, are we going to restrict this just to vendors, or is it open to agencies and states and contractors, et cetera?
Yeah, no, Doug, it's a great question. We will be filtering. You're exactly right, to make sure that we have the flexibility for folks to relax enough to kind of be really kind of clear and vulnerable about how we can improve things. You're exactly right. We need to have, quote, kind of safe spaces where maybe the vendors can talk together, the states can talk together, but then we can also have opportunities where once we've kind of considered it an issue, that we can bring it together. Those parts that we feel like need to be shared between each other, right, to solve issues. So yeah, we'll do our best to try to make those places as specific to the purpose.
Doug, we're like your neighborhood pub. We reserve the right to refuse service.
Any other ideas? This is great discussion. Thank you. It'll help us as we plan for the meeting. All right, sounds good. Well, if anyone thinks of anything or has further thoughts you may not want to share here, feel free to, as we said, email myself or Clay. I'll put my email in the chat in just a moment, and we'd love to hear your ideas as we continue to plan. I'll pass it back to you, Chris.
Awesome discussion, everybody. Thank you, Lauri, and thank you, everybody, for your participation. For the next section, we are going to go back to Jen, who is going to give us an update on V3 5.1. Jen.
Thank you very much. And that was a great idea about the quarterly vendor meeting. So we'll definitely look into that. I hadn't even honestly thought of that. For version 3.5.1, some of you may have noticed that on March 28th, OMB did release some new guidance about not patient race, but about collecting race ethnicity information. And the addition was adding the Middle Eastern or North African option to their list. So because that came from OMB, we did add that to the version 3.5.1 changes that will go forward. We wanted to let you know there is a link that I will put in, that I've put into the chat. There we go. That will take you to the NEMPUB ticket. The NEMPUB ticket is actually 741, even though I mistyped in the message to 714. And this is just because it is the OMB guidance. Are there any questions or concerns on that?
Yeah, only comment I'll share just general quickly. Yeah, thank you. Lots of folks reached out to us as soon as that was released, a lot of the stakeholders. So thank you for keeping us really tight on that, as we were able to get that taken care of quickly. Thank you.
And then, so the other thing I would like to talk about is we were able to put together a high-level project roadmap that kind of shows you the process in between putting together those business requirements, which you have all been a part of. And I know I've said it before, but it can't be said enough. Thank you very, very much for participating in the process. And we have worked with our IT team to develop those requirements and clarify those for our IT team. We continue to answer any straggling questions that come in. But so now they're entered into phase 1 development, which is starting to determine what they need to do for like the data dictionary, the XSD changes and things like that. And once they get started on that and get an idea of the time it takes for that development, we can give you more information in regards to timelines and dates and things like that. So you'll notice there's no dates on this. This is just a high level roadmap to give you an idea of where we're going. Then we're going to run into phase 2, which that is where the NEMSIS TAC IT folks will start to update the resources that you're going to need to use during the candidate release, right? So that's the validator system, the compliance to send and receive and get responses and see how everything behaves as you try to break version 351, which is everybody's favorite thing to do. And you start to work on the development process in the candidate release. And the candidate release and the UAT, that is happening simultaneously. That goes on concurrently. You guys, most of you have been through this before. They're listed separately just because the actual release of the standard, the release of the resources, and then the UAT where you're breaking everything, right? So we wanted to show both of those, but they are happening at the same time. And then once we get all that information back from you, the feedback, we've made any necessary critical patches that need to be done before we can go live and everything is in place, then the go live will happen. So we know there was a lot of questions last time, and we wanted to give you more information and share with you what we could so far. So I do know that Clay is next up, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the timeline and the process and things like that as well. So are there any questions about the roadmap? I do see one from Doug. Do we have codes for these new values for those who want to get them added sooner? As soon as we have that available and as soon as IT is confirmed that the code that was assigned is the code that's going to be used, we will share that information as soon as we have it. That kind of leads into one of the next things I wanted to talk about, which is trying to find out from the vendors, from even the state data managers, right? The people who have to develop the training on these changes and things like that. What type of resources did you find helpful in the version 3.4 to 3.5 transition? And what type of resources do you think you would still find helpful for this minor release with the change to version 3.5.1 that we could develop, that we could provide, that we could have on the website for you? And you should still be able to unmute yourselves, I believe. So I can give an example, like Doug just asked about the codes, right? What value will go with that? Is a resource that shows that information. Would that be helpful? And if it would be helpful, what type of format would be most helpful for you when you're looking at it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, changelog. Yeah, thank you, Sam. A changelog will be incredibly helpful. So yeah, we'll make sure that that's included in phase 2 as well. Maybe just the prime the thinking a little bit again. Going from 3.5 to 3.5.1 will be much of a less dramatic change, right? But in the past, perhaps if states had a simple PowerPoint, right, that just provided an overview of maybe those specific things where we've added values, for example, to certain elements where that could be valuable for you to have right at hand and able to pass on to any of your agencies that are kind of, very active at making sure that people understand what values are available and when to use them. Those kind of things, we'd be happy to help with those. Yeah, the XSLT, yeah, is always nice. Oh, the formatter in Excel, yes. Yeah, that was a good resource last year. PowerPoint changes, yes. Oh, changelog in Excel format. Okay, that's an interesting thought. I remember we did do that as well. Extended definitions, yes.
And the extended definitions, that's something that's provided by NASEMSO. So we can definitely put that out there and maybe work with Randall to present those new values over to NASEMSO to consider for inclusion in the extended data definition dictionary. All right. Everyone likes the chat box this morning instead of unmuting. All right. Well, Clay, I think that's a great time to turn it over to you, my friend.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, I'm just going to add a couple more comments related to what Jen just shared. Thank you, Jen. Right, so we will have this 3.5.1 kind of say spaved on all of our calls now after kind of Doug reminded us that would be valuable for us to do. So we'll always have a short segment on a version 3.5.1 on the process of moving and the progress that we're making. Doug also brought up another great thought that we wanted to kind of check with you as we try to develop. I'm going to try to share a couple things here, right? So Doug talked about this high-level timeline that's on our website, a glitch that we wanted to bring to people's attention if you have folks looking at this timeline. When we updated a couple of pages on the NEMSIS website, this version that you see now with these two sentences in the bottom left-hand corner was not present on the website. An older version of this document was on the website. We updated it as soon as we got off the phone with you folks 2 weeks ago because we recognized that we had an old version there. Some of the timelines had even been changed, and we didn't have this statement at the bottom that indicates, hey, this represents kind of just a relational picture of how we'll be versioning, and that an actual schedule developed for each of the actual milestones would be developed, right? So this was meant to be very high level with the idea. I'll see if I can find the one that we kind of socialized associated with going from 3.4 to 3.5. Right. I think people very much appreciated this type of a timeline where they were actually able to look at milestones and kind of answer a number of questions that may exist between the software and the state representatives, or the state representatives talking with other stakeholders. So the idea is with version 3.5.1 that we will develop a timeline that looks more like this rather, and keep this as just a high level look at how the versioning will happen over the next 10 years. So a couple of quick questions. One is, let me see if I can go back to this. As we move along this process of completing version 3.5.1, one of the pieces in here that's incredibly important is for the candidate release and for you folks to for the vendors to kind of bang against it, look for any issues that we need to fix if there's any kind of a critical patch or other kind of fixes that need to happen. So this is kind of the user acceptor testing, the UAT. Would like to hear from a couple of vendors as to how much time you'd like to have us set aside for that type of a review, because we will want, and you will want as vendors, a time frame when we can report to you that we're actually releasing a version that we feel could be put in production. Any thoughts about how long of a UAT period vendors would like? Okay.
Silence, I think that means 90 days, right, Clay?
Yeah, and
I'm waiting to see who unmutes after that.
I would, but it's really loud where I am.
Oh, no worries, Sam.
No, I would say it kind of depends on what we're uncovering with the UAT.
Yeah.
I think I can't even come up with a good thing. This one is a lot less onerous of a change than 3.5 was. I don't feel like there's so many things that are breaking changes, but I'd like a quarter at least.
3 months.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sam. That's helpful. Thank you.
Clay, I also want to mention two things. I remember with the critical patch, we had critical batch values for ENG 03 and 04 coming into South Dakota, and we were, sending them to NEMSIS, and NEMSIS wasn't ready to receive them. I'm a little worried that if we, and when I say we, I mean generically everybody, implements new values too soon, particularly when either a state isn't ready to receive them or the TAC isn't ready to receive them, what then happens is the PCRs will fail. So I just want to put that cautionary note out there just as a reminder in case people hadn't thought of it.
Yeah, Karin, that's a great thought. We remember that experience as well, right? When the ACS completely modified the trauma triage criteria, right? And that was a bit of a boondoggle. So thank you for the reminder. Yeah, we'll want to make sure through this kind of phase 2 for us, and when we actually go live and want to be accepting data, that we have the full ability to do that. Thank you, Karin. Yeah, that's sitting at the top of our minds from the last experience. Thank you. All right. Well, great comments. As Jen mentioned, as we're actively determining our timeline for phase 1, phase 2, providing kind of collecting some information from our side as to how long those pieces would take. So we're hopeful that in the next couple of months, we'll have a fully formed out timeline that would allow, stakeholders on the state side as well as vendors to have really kind of a more precise idea of how this will roll out. Until that happens, one additional thing, just based on the great comment that Doug sent out, right? This is the timeline that people are now looking at. It's the only timeline, right? As we mentioned, we'll be able to develop one that looks like this, but for us to have these timelines, we have to kind of work through this process, and we'll develop it together. But right now, if folks are only seeing this, my question is, could we make changes here that might relax some concerns, right? So for example, here, should we, blur this presentation that makes it look like, even though we indicate here that this is really shouldn't be construed as a set schedule, should we blur these lines and so that it doesn't look like kind of agencies or others thinking, oh my gosh, we will need to move to version 3.5.1 of January 1 of 2025. Would that be helpful for us to make this some type of a change? Scoot this back, right? Scoot back the software build another 6 months, or kind of blur these start times and end times. What are folks thinking? What could we do to help folks recognize, until we have a firm timeline on the dash or on the website, not to worry too much about the migration to version 3.5.1?
Wait, we had a suggestion in chat to change the title.
Ridgely, what would you change? Is it the word timeline that's is drawing everybody's attention?
Yeah, and I don't, sorry, I got two things going at once. I don't know what the right
Project plan.
Yeah, something different there. Yeah. Yeah, Reggie, that's a good comment. We'll work on that. That's a great idea. That would help, I think.
Maybe even draft project plan.
Yeah, Good thought. Good thought. Okay, well, if any other comments come to you or other thoughts about how we could make this kind of meet the need until we have a firm kind of timelines to provide, just let us know. We'll be happy to make those changes. All right, any other questions regarding version 3.5.1 before we turn it over to Eric for an update from OEMS? All right, thank you, David. That's helpful. All right, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Clay, and thanks for everyone for participating. Great discussion there. Yes, so we'll turn it over to Eric Chaney right now, who's going to give us any items from the Office of EMS.
I had one that was taken care of a little earlier, and that was about the annual meeting. Basically, you can go online to the banner, click on the banner, see the registration information for the hotel. You see the information, kind of a draft agenda. Please take a look at it. We spent some time talking about it, so I'm not going to go all of it again, but this is a meeting we set up to gain insight from you. It's an opportunity to engage both. It's an opportunity to engage other federal partners that we'll have there. So if there's things that you want discussed that aren't on there, don't sit back and, feel like, oh, well, I don't know what to put in and they're not going to talk about things that are of interest to me, blah, blah, blah. Let us know. Let us know what to put in there. Let us know if we're missing something. And if we have something on there you think is just absolutely ridiculous, let us know that as well. But that window of opportunity is closing very fast. So 30 days from now, there's not going to be an opportunity to make those changes when there's invited people and things will be locked down. So please do that rather quickly. The second thing, grants, DOT grants. It's all about money. So ladies and gentlemen, there is unprecedented money available to states and now in Safe Streets for All and some other projects for local EMS agencies, local emergency services agencies to get funding. I know that some of the vendors have put together individuals within their companies that are helping states or localities draft these things. We are more than happy, we being NHTSA, Office of EMS, myself, Jeremy and others. And then we have Dr. Mann and the NEMSIS TAC folks who have already put together some background information on a lot of these things and are also available for some background SME consult types of things. If you are working with someone and you want some assistance with this, please reach out and let us know. There may be other people that we're aware of that are taking on the same things. The way these grants are structured, just because one person gets it doesn't prohibit someone else from doing the same thing and getting money for it as well. I am told that there is money that is not being spent, that's being left on the table, which in the federal government is just a horrendous thing to do because you have to give that money back at the end of the timeline. This money does carry from year to year. So if it's not spent year 1 and year 2, it goes to year 3. And basically, NEMSIS is very specifically mentioned in the National Roadway Safety Strategy. So there's absolutely no reason why, as long as you keep it to something specific, as long as you keep it to something specific that can be tied to motor vehicle crashes in some way, and that could be training education on EMS, on NEMSIS systems, upgrading NEMSIS software, any one of a number of things that you can tie back to that, it's eligible. And if you have questions about that, let us know. If you're working on a project, we would like to know what it is. We're not going to tell you you can't do it, shouldn't do it. That's up to you. If you have questions about, at ESO's meeting last week, someone asked me about an aeromedical submission. And I told them historically that's not going over well, and I would put that effort in another place. I can give you answers like that based on what I know has been discussed at headquarters. And you can still want to submit aeromedical, have at it. I can just tell you your likelihood of success is pretty low. So I tell you all those things to say, reach out. We're there for you. We're happy to help. And man, there's money there for the taking, and I hate to see it left on the table, or worse yet, go to law enforcement.
There is a question in the chat, Eric, asking if you have any examples of previous grants that were given.
There are some, it depends on where are you looking at the local level or you're looking at the state level. At the state level, there's been a number of grants. I think there's some examples available in one of GAM's presentations, so I'll get that posted for you. I know that Jonathan Fight was just successful in getting a very significant grant over a period of years in Michigan. So I think that's been put out as far as general information. So yes, I'll get some, I'll get these put in some place so that you guys can take a look at them and see. I will tell you that there's specific interest in underserved populations in this administration. Rural areas are of significant interest, and tribal nations, if you have those in your states, are also of significant interest. So yes, let me get some examples pulled together. I'll make GAM's presentation available to you that has the information on each of the individual grants and who they specifically target. So you'll have that posted with the information from today. Monet raised her hand.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we're also planning for a public training. One of the proposed topics has to do with grants funding and grants that are available. And so if we can pull the information together, we may offer this in May for public training, and we'll provide that information to the stakeholder group. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Monet. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to say the most important part. These are not typical federal grants where you're submitting 50, 60 page documents with, 6,000 electronic forms and 22 notary signatures and whatever. These are pretty straightforward. In most cases, 2.5, 2 pages, something like that covers the intent. In some cases, it's a pretty basic form. The amount of money that you can request is really dependent on the project and it varies from state to state. We can also help you with some of the background information on that as well. So, if you have a topic of interest, now's the time, folks. That's all I have unless someone has questions for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. We have come to the open forum section of the V3 call today. So does anyone have any topics for discussion for the open forum? You should be able to unmute, or if you'd like to put something in the chat. One Mississippi, two Mississippi. Okay. So letting you know about upcoming meetings on April 24th is our next meeting. And so, and same bat time, same bat channel. With that, I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. If this is recorded and it is placed onto our YouTube channel and onto the NEMSIS website, so if you want to share this with a colleague or go over any of the topics that were discussed today, you can do it there. I always like to put in a plug for following us on social media. If you go to the NEMSIS homepage, there are links to go to our YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter X and Facebook pages if you want to be notified about events like this and other ones that we are doing as part of the NEMSIS TAC. You can go there, and it's a great space to get that information. Other than that, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and we'll talk to you soon.